So the Stillwater Planning Commission meeting of April 5th will now come to order. Let's see, this evening we have some items on the agenda, and I think that actually the meeting will run more smoothly if we do item 3 before item 2. So I would like to take chairman's prerogative and do item 3 first, and that would be presentation by special counsel of the City Attorney's Office regarding state statutes, the Stillwater Code of Ordinances, the zoning code, and cases of interest on planning and zoning matters.
I want to thank you all for tolerating me again. I promise I really will try not to talk too long. This is another one of those aspects of the law that I get super excited about. And I was really, frankly, quite surprised in preparing for just a few comments that the TIF law in Oklahoma has been in place for 20 years. It doesn't really seem like it's actually longer than that. It looks like it was adopted back in 92. See, boy, I really am dating myself with that. So it's been almost 30 years. When I was the city attorney in Broken Arrow, we embarked on doing a TIF. And so I learned a considerable amount about the process, and we actually utilized the Center for Economic Development law as well. You may know, and I'm sure you have, because I'm sure some of you have done research on this, that the Local Development Act, it allows municipalities and other public bodies to undertake development projects contemplated by the Oklahoma Constitution. And the purpose, very simply, is to promote the planning, financing, and development or redevelopment of areas determined to be unproductive, undeveloped, underdeveloped, or blighted. And there actually have been a number of cases that have interpreted and further refined the provisions of the Local Development Act. In fact, in Oklahoma City, you may have remembered the various Bricktown developments. There was an individual by the name of Moshe Tall, and he filed a number of key TAM taxpayer lawsuits, many of which involved aspects of the Local Development Act. And so he became so familiar to the court that they actually referred to each of his cases as Tall 1, Tall 2, Tall 3, Tall 4, and I think there was even Tall 5. But as frustrating as I'm sure that may have been for the Urban Renewal Authority and the state of Oklahoma, it's really given municipal practitioners and the Center for Economic Development Law, whose principal actually wrote the legislation on this, the opportunity to refine what we do and how we do it. I did tell Brady that I was going to go back and sort of dust off the cobwebs in my head when it came to interpretation of the law and the roles of the various parties in this process. And so as I was reviewing the case law and the Attorney General's opinions this afternoon, I was reminded about how there's actually a representative of the Planning Commission that serves on the review committee. And that's super important because not only is staff involved, but you also have somebody from the Planning Commission that is taking a different approach to how we view. And so as the chairperson did that, she would have brought her skill set and experience from the Planning Commission and would have had an opportunity to ask any questions or bring up anything that she thought would have been concerning. Now, of course, the other representatives include a representative from the City Council and all of the other taxing jurisdictions. It's just a really wonderful process that gives us another tool in our toolbox to enhance development here in Stillwater. So what's actually before you today is a resolution. And the resolution in this particular case does two things. The first one thing that it does is it recognizes that the Planning Commission finds that the project plan, which is the plan itself, and it was attached to the materials, that it's in compliance with the comprehensive plan. So that's the first thing that you're being asked to consider. And of course, we'd like to think that it is, of course, because it's already been through lots of vetting, and also through staff, and also through the Center for Economic Development Law. The second aspect of the resolution is where you will recommend to the governing body that they approve this particular project plan. And my understanding is that the scope did change just a little bit, but based upon my review and my comparative review of the previous plan, it does appear to be all legal. And so I just thought that I would give you just a quick little history of how this all came about. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We'll move on now to item number 2, which is plans, policies, and ordinance for discussion and possible action. The item we have today is a resolution of the Stillwater Planning Commission determining that the 2022 amended Stillwater Reinvestment Plan, which is a Stillwater Downtown Campus Link project plan, is in conformance with the Stillwater 2030 C3 Comprehensive Plan for the City of Stillwater, and recommending to the City of Stillwater approval and adoption of the 2022 amended Stillwater Reinvestment Plan. I'll turn it over to Brady. Thanks.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Brady Moore, Chief Performance Innovation Officer. Sorry, my title can be a mouthful sometimes. With me this evening is Melissa Reams, who is our Deputy City Manager and also our Chief Financial Officer for the City of Stillwater, and Jeff Matthews, our Community Development Director. We're excited to bring this case before the Planning Commission tonight because it is a first step to some exciting news that we hopefully have coming soon for Stillwater. As mentioned by Ms. Childs, our Local Development Act of 1992, specifically the State Statute 62-858, defines this process that we're going through tonight. It goes through for these tax increment financing districts, or what we call TIF districts, that this coming to Planning Commission with this amended project plan is the first step. So as we look at the area map at the subject site that is being amended into the current TIF 3 project plan, is this area that is highlighted by the purple hatch pattern, which is just to the north of Airport Road, as it sits off to the west of Perkins Road. Again, as part of this process and why we're coming before Planning Commission, Ms. Childs mentioned those things, but we are looking at zoning. We're looking at, is this building and facility use something that we would like to see new redevelopment in? We're looking at, infrastructure, and we're also looking at basically the sum of all that is, does it meet our C3 plan? Does it meet our comprehensive plan and our vision for where we want Stillwater to be and to grow? As we look at the aerial map here that's highlighted by this red section, again, you can see how it sits just to the northeast of Boomer Lake, just to the north of Airport Road. Here's a street view, kind of a wide-angle street view of that facility. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. It's a very large, empty manufacturing facility. It's been Quebecor in the past, World Color Press, and Total Energy most recently, but it has been abandoned for some years, as you all know. As we look to the zoning map, this zoning map shows that it is IG, which is our general industrial. That is our highest impact industrial zoning. So it is for the industry that is looking to come into town, this would be the appropriate zoning that we have. And as we look to future land use map from our C3 plan, as you all know, as we're looking, do we continue to see industrial use forecasted in this area? And as you can see, yes, it is. It's in the gray section, which is industrial. It would definitely meet our comprehensive plan. And before we go into any public input, I just want to remind you that in a second you can we'll be able to, the staff can answer any questions that you have. I'm sure you have some questions. In your packet was included this 2022 amended reinvestment plan. We included the red line version and the clean version so you could see what is being proposed as changed. To include that property at 100 West Airport Road. You can also see the changes to the project budget with adding this new district to that TIF 3 project plan. And just as a reminder, from here, after our meeting today, we'll have 2 public hearings at 2 city council meetings in May. And that again matches what is lined out in that Local Development Act of 1992. And just to remind you also that today the TIF 3 review committee had their 3rd public meeting about this amended project plan, and it passed with a vote of 7-2 by that committee. And with that, I'll open it to any questions you have of staff or public input.
Any questions from the commissioners?
I had a question. You said it was abandoned. So who owns it currently?
It's owned by, I don't know if we know the individual, but I mean, it is owned, the property is owned by someone. When I say the word abandoned, I mean empty.
Okay, so
not in use.
Not occupied by any business at this point in time.
So there is an owner that of it currently. So it has been maintained and I mean reasonably good condition.
Yeah, it meets all code and standards. It's not. It's not dilapidated. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I noticed on the map of the area shows that the boundary goes over the trail from Boomer up to Parkview Estates. Is that
Let's look.
absolutely correct, or just kind of a close rendition of the boundary?
Yeah, I would think that their property doesn't go over the Kamioka Trail there.
When you go up and down the trail, it's pretty clear there's a boundary. I was just hoping that it.
No.
It wasn't.
That was probably our scale when we drew those red lines. That's probably not. We should have a star disclaimer that not drawn to
approximate
perfect scale. Yes. Any other questions?
Any other questions from the commission?
Is Melissa going to speak, or should all the questions be directed to you?
I think Melissa has been involved with this process. She takes the lead on a lot of these TIF projects for our city, which is great. She doesn't get enough credit for what she does, but she's brought a lot of these to fruition. So she is here to answer some questions that I probably can't.
Support.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
She can answer some questions.
Do you have some questions you would like to ask?
Yes, I do. I'm somewhat familiar with TIFs, and what I find interesting about this one is usually TIFs are contiguous. You know, a TIF district is contained within itself, and this is different in the increment district X is north of the corridor area. I would assume that's legal.
Yes, in the Local Development Act, it does provide for a minor amendment. And so if we look at the property, the subject property, I want to say it's approximately 20 acres. And that's about 5% of the overall district. So we can do this minor amendment to the project plan. And that's what we're proposing here. And so you're right, it's not contiguous to the existing TIF.
What was the rationale for doing it that way?
Ms. Childs and I and Brady were having that discussion before we came down here to the meeting. Some of it's financial. We want to spend that 5% in a very meaningful way that is impactful to the overall TIF. And this one, the building's listed currently at $9.9 million. So that's quite a jump from what its base assessed value is at 6.3. They're also contemplating an investment of approximately $113 million in equipment and property. They're also looking at creating, at build out, 113 jobs for the community with an average annual salary in the range of $55,000 to $60,000. So those are some real wins for the community, from a direct investment in ad valorem tax to indirect sales tax that's generated by these employees. So that was the logic behind it. I've had a hard time myself wrapping my arms around why, and I've asked Dan and Lisa with the Center for Economic Development Law on many occasions, and at our review committee, didn't they, Ms. Phillips? They asked why are we doing this? But the project plan is kind of like I look at it as the trunk of the tree. They both have commonality. They're both going to function much like TIF 3 does on its own, with the direct and indirect participation of the taxing jurisdictions. But then you have these little shoots that go off, and you have TIF 3, and it's over here, and it's really focused more on a downtown area and this walkability between campus. And then you have this TIF up north that is going to be one project specific, and there may be there's different budgets for both of them, so they share a common purpose, and yet they kind of have these shoots that come off.
Yeah, they're really very different.
They are very different,
I mean,
but they
the end
share.
result- I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, they are very different, but what they share is a common objective, and that's to encourage redevelopment in areas that might not develop if it weren't for the TIF.
Right. This is going to be, to some degree, a repurposing of this building. If you rewind and look back to the more business forms building on the east side of Boomer, that was repurposed. In fact, it was actually expanded upon. Were there TIF funds involved in that redevelopment?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
This is, TIF 3 is the first ad valorem sales tax TIF that the city of Stillwater, to my knowledge, has had. The first TIF that you really experienced was what we lovingly refer to as the Academy TIF. It's TIF number 1, and it's up on North Perkins Road. That was a sales tax TIF, solely a sales tax TIF. So the city is giving up one of its precious undedicated pennies of sales tax to help encourage that development up there to that developer. We do have another sales tax TIF that encompasses the west side. So if you think of Sanger Road and go to Range Road, and then I forget how far it goes to the north and to the south, that's the west TIF. Again, a sales tax TIF. And even that couldn't encourage development. I don't know, it's so hard out there. And I think a lot of it is because if you look at the land owned out there, it's predominantly owned by OSU. And so even the pieces that the developers want, they're not for sale. The third TIF, of course, is our downtown campus link TIF. It was the first ad valorem TIF. And it was, this is the only state in the union where cities don't share in ad valorem tax. The only way we can access ad valorem tax is through the vote of the people. And we are going through that this evening. I see Ms. Phillips has her I voted. Okay, Mr. Allred has his I voted. I hope the rest of you voted. Yay! And whether you voted for or against, go vote. But that's how we access ad valorem. We have to get the voters' permission to do that. We can't access it for O&M, for operations and maintenance. So our pennies, our sales tax pennies are very precious to us in how we allot those out. So it was a big deal to come to the taxing jurisdictions and ask them to partner with us. And that very first TIF took a long time to get across the finish line. We've done another one since then, and it's our BLS TIF. It's up north. We're going to use that TIF to help us repurpose the decommissioned steam generation plant that's up there. And hopefully we're getting ready. You're going to see some dirt moving here pretty quick. And then, so now our next one is this little addition that we're going to do to our downtown campus link TIF. And it will be ad valorem. It will be sales tax as well, but sales tax in this particular instance is going to be indirect. It's sales tax that's generated by the people that we're bringing to town to be the workers at the manufacturing company.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a general question. How do these TIFs generally develop? Is it staff in the city staff that are working on ideas about how to put these abandoned properties to use and develop ideas? I guess there's a committee that
Well,
works strictly on that.
it's kind of interesting how they all come about. TIF 3 was really the brainchild of our mayor, Will Joyce, and
Okay.
he knew he wanted to encourage redevelopment between campus and downtown. And he was the one that carried the banner for that one, and he was the chairperson of that committee. There was really not a specific project in mind when we worked with that TIF. Then you move forward to the TIF 4, which is, I call that the BLS TIF. That was a specific project. And the other thing that was really key in the ability to form that TIF was TIF 4 encompasses all publicly owned property. So it's all property that's not on the tax rolls right now. And we're hoping to convert that to property that will be on the tax rolls. So its base assessed value now is 0. So you can see we're going to get a big increment. And if I'm preaching to the choir, I apologize. But increment is the difference between whatever our base assessed value is and then what the new assessment is. So you get this increment here, and you scrape that off and you use it to fund these projects. And that process happens in the background between the county treasurer and the city. The city is the fiduciary for those funds. They're in sole and separate accounts, and we have annual reporting requirements according to the Local Development Act so that everybody knows how the money's being spent and that it's being spent on its intended purpose.
Thank you.
So sometimes it's project specific, like this one was. The project came to us and they said, here's our ask, here's our needs. And we said, this is what we think we can do for you. So sometimes it's more, I want to encourage development, so this is the tool I'm going to use. And some of them are project specific. This is how they're asking, this is how we're going to get it there. All right, thank you for serving, and thank you for being here this evening and listening to the presentation. We appreciate your service to our community.
Thank you.
Do y'all want the recommended action, or do you want to wait and just have a discussion first?
Let's go ahead and have the recommended action.
Okay. So there's a resolution tonight, PC-2022-01, that you'll be voting on. And basically the action is to accept the findings for the 2022 amended Stillwater Reinvestment Plan, and therefore recommends the 2022 amended Stillwater Reinvestment Plan for approval to the Stillwater City Council based on the Stillwater C3 comprehensive plan and the proposed project plan with the appropriate zoning being general industrial.
So commissioners, would you like to have, anybody have a motion in mind or any other discussion amongst the commission?
With the resolution, is it the motion would be to approve the resolution?
Yes.
I move to approve the resolution as presented.
Yeah, without objection, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we shall now vote.
Motion passes 5-0.
Very good, thank you. Next item on the agenda would be miscellaneous items from staff, planning commissioners, or city attorney for discussion and possible action. The only item we have listed is that the next planning commission meeting will be April 19th. Last item is adjournment. Do I hear a motion?
Without objection, move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. We shall now vote.